What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. Today we are going to be ranking the best and worst episode of every Total Drama season. Now, before we do begin though, I do need to talk to you guys about something serious. The support from this channel has been insane. I mean, I couldn't ask for a better community of people to support my videos, and it means so much. I mean, honestly, thank you guys so much. And in some other great news, we hit 200 subscribers, which is just insane. So, thank you guys. And one final thing, I am pretty much in school at this rate, so I will have to slow down the process with uploading videos, but content will still be coming, so do not worry. Total Drama has had some really good episodes in the series, but with the positives, there's always some negatives, and in Total Drama, I think this does show quite a lot. I think for the most part, Total Drama has an overwhelming amount of good episodes, but there's still some bad episodes in each season. Now, before we begin, I figured I'd tell you guys the criteria. I'm ranking based off of challenge, plot, elimination, humor, and for seasons like Ridonkulous Race, I'll include location. Along with this, I won't include any specials or aftermaths. And finally, for World Tour, I'll also be ranking the song as well. But with pretty much everything out of the way, let's dive in.
Okay, whoever's sick, twisted idea this was to put him in charge of this challenge, I have to say, I'm a little bit impressed.
Coming in as the best island episode, I gotta be honest, I thought for a while and I narrowed it down to a few episodes, but I think I have to go with Basic Straining. Now, I know it's kind of a basic choice, but man, is it a classic. I mean, first of all, we see a hilarious plot. Chef takes over Chris's job and is super funny. The challenge itself is a boot camp, which I really like, and we see some really good humor.
I love Master Chief Hatchet because he is very. This is just one sentence with 5 pages of varies in between.
Anyway, the episode is just really fun, and I like the elimination. I think Harold deserved to get Courtney off the island to make Duncan mad, especially after the abuse he was given. Plus, Harold was valuable to the team and won them Dodgeball and the Talent Show Challenge. This episode is just really fun, and I mean, who doesn't love the dancing scene? Anyway, this episode was great. I didn't really touch up on Duncan and Courtney's relationship because, I mean, I guess it's, the starting episode for, everything happening. But, I don't actually mind it in the beginning. I just think action, ruined it. But anyway, this episode is definitely a classic and my personal favorite of Total Drama Island.
Okay, whoever's sick, twisted idea this was to put him in charge of this challenge, I have to say, I'm a little bit impressed.
Coming in as the worst episode of Island, I thought about a few contenders. Hate Campture, Brunch of Disgustingness, and the first episode itself. But I decided to go with Brunch of Disgustingness. First off, this episode wasn't necessary at all. I mean, I know that they needed filler, but dang, this just didn't feel like the way to do it. This episode is just gross, man. The challenge is whatever, I just hated the ending. It's so bad that I think it's worse than any other elimination this season besides Lashana's. Terrible episode with nothing going on and no plot. Terrible episode just in general there's just nothing going on, no plot developments. It's just a gross mess and it's miserable to watch. If I had 3 words to sum up this episode, I would probably say disgusting and terrible.
The rest of them lived happily ever after. Not! Come on!
Coming in as the best action episode, I had a hard time to decide because there are great episodes here, especially after the merge, but if I had to narrow it down, I think I'll go with Get a Clue. The episode itself involved contestants getting DNA from everyone and then getting on a train, and then we see the lights go out. Chris is murdered, but we see Lindsay eventually act smart for once, and she accuses Courtney after she finds a napkin with orange cheese puff crumbs that only Courtney could have had. The episode itself is very suspenseful, and I just really love the ending. Lindsay choosing Duncan just to make Courtney mad was hilarious, and I think it was a great redemption for Lindsay. And I think it was just a great redemption in general, because everybody by that point was calling her dumb, and even she got called dumb in the episode itself.
I've got a brain. Hey, I was the one who said Chris was giving clues. You did, sweetie. I felt really bad for Lindsay, but that was some pretty good thinking on Courtney's part. Safe and secure? Genius!
While it isn't the funniest, it's a classic episode, and there's a lot to like. If you like suspense, this episode is definitely for you, and if you don't like suspense, well, check it out anyway. I mean, why not?
The rest of them lived happily ever after. Not! Come on!
Coming in as the worst action episode, I think it was close. I think action started off slow, but progressively got better, but I chose between the Chef's Gank Redemption and 310 to Crazy Town. I'm gonna go out and say the Chef's Gank Redemption. Honestly, it's just not a good episode in any aspect. The challenge is okay, but the execution is terrible. We get more vomiting scenes, and it's just gross, man. I'm tired of looking at these characters throwing up. Anyway, the challenge itself is just okay. Like I said, I don't hate it, but the execution sucks. Also, Izzy just randomly comes back out of nowhere where she would last for a few episodes, which is just wild. A lot of action was just filler, and we see it a ton with non-elimination challenges, which I understand, but sometimes that season is dull, man. It's incredibly annoying to watch sometimes. Anyway, rants aside, this episode sucks, and the elimination sucks as well. Trent sold challenges, and they can't blame Gwen entirely. She didn't have a favor to repay. Trent was the one who sold. Just a bad episode from a season that I think started bad and definitely got better. World Tour had a lot of great episodes, so for me to narrow it down to just one was difficult, but I think I'll go with the finale, preferably the version where Heather wins. First off, man, what a great finale. It's truly a classic. The challenge is pretty good, and even though we see my man Cody get destroyed, I think we all knew he wasn't winning. The song here is one of the best in the series, even with Auto-Tune Alejandro. I like it a lot, and it just sets the vibe. As for the challenge itself, we see Alejandro dominate until Heather, who's fighting with everything she has just to make it. The stage is set on the volcano, and Heather makes it up. We see Alejandro approach her, and Heather begins to hit on Alejandro, and then they kiss. Then Heather kicks Alejandro in the coconuts, and she picks up her pineapple and throws it down into the volcano and wins the season. What a moment in total drama history. Overall, this episode is just a classic. Classic song, classic challenge, classic episode. Lot to love and a great finish to a great season. Coming in as the worst episode of World Tour, I think there were a few options. I See London, Noof Kids on the Block, and Walk Like an Egyptian Part 1. However, I decided to choose I See London. Look, man, this episode begins Duncan, Gwen, and Courtney's derailment. I mean, the plot makes no sense. Duncan was just randomly found by Gwen and Courtney. I mean, come on, man. Another issue I have with this episode is, why was Noah voted out? Team Chris won the challenge. It's just something that really bothered me. Another issue with the episode is it's just all over the place. I mean, we go from one scene to another, just skipping place to place. What really sucks is, I think the episode before the ending was a great episode, but the ending is so bad that I just have to put it here. Terrible ending to an otherwise good episode.
Mock me about it.
Me too.
Ow. Hey.
This is the Department of Environmental Protection. You're busted, McLean.
Oh man!
Meddling tree huggers!
Launch Operation Doomsday!
Coming in as the best Revenge of the Island episode, I honestly wasn't sure. The season itself is really solid, and if I had to choose, I think I'll go with The Mine Is a Terrible Thing to Waste. This episode is fun, there's a lot to like, I like the challenge, and the mine is a good environment. There's a lot of good humor, and I definitely think it's a peak for a lot of characters. As for the elimination, I think Brick was good, but we all knew his time was coming up. I think Anne Maria also was at her end here. I just think the writers needed a clever way to get her out. Like I said, the challenge was good, and the Golden Chris was a flashback, and the elimination felt fair. I really don't have a lot to say because I'll be plain honest with you guys. Out of all the seasons I've seen, I've probably seen the least of Revenge of the Island, but maybe I'll rewatch it in the future. If you guys would like to see that as a possible video idea, let me know.
This is the Department of Environmental Protection. You're busted, McLean.
Oh man!
Meddling tree huggers!
Launch Operation Doomsday!
Coming in as the worst episode of Revenge of the Island, I think I'm going to go with Backstabbers Ahoy. The episode wasn't that bad, and honestly, none of Revenge of the Island really is. I think none of the episodes stand out, which is the biggest flaw of Revenge of the Island. As for the episode itself, though, the plot isn't terrible, but I wasn't really a fan. The challenge is pretty boring, and seeing Anne Maria and Vito was just a bit, weird, you know? Seeing Dawn get eliminated is just whatever. I mean, I'm not really the biggest fan of Dawn, but I do think she could have been used a lot better, but, you know, it's whatever. It's just missed potential. Not a bad episode, I just think it's pretty boring, even for Revenge of the Island, but I definitely don't hate it in its entirety, just a mediocre episode at best, in my personal opinion.
But that was then, and this is now, and we can't stop it, so we gotta top it.
Coming in as the best episode of All Stars, I gotta be honest, it was pretty difficult, so because of this, you guys get the 2 worst episodes of All Stars.
But that was then, and this is now, and we can't stop it, so we gotta top it.
Coming in as the second worst episode of All Stars, I'm going with No One Expects the Spanish Opposition. This episode is just rough. I mean, we see Heather sell terribly bad. I mean, not even the Falcons would choke this hard. As for the episode itself, it's just really bad. The challenge sucked, and finding eggs is just pretty boring. On top of this, we see Sierra with her new kids. Just a bad episode. There's nothing funny here, the challenge was bad, and it had character derailment, with this being the downfall of Heather. I mean, such a stupid way to ruin a character who's one of the best to ever do it. Heather is incredibly smart, and this one just didn't make sense. Terrible episode.
Alejandro. Ha! Oh, I do not think I'm leaving.
Oh yeah? Really? Why is that?
I've got diplomatic immunity. Just immunity, Alejandro.
You!
Hate to interrupt during such a well-thought-out argument, but the only vote that wasn't for Alejandro was for you. You! So, you are getting flushed.
But that was then, and this is now, and we can't stop it, so we gotta top it.
Coming in as the worst episode, I mean, we knew what it was gonna be. Come on now. Sunday, Muddy Sunday, this episode just sucks, man. It's one of the worst in the entire series. Bad plot holes, derailment, and just a boring challenge. I mean, it's kind of dark as well, considering the interns are dying of starvation. But this episode was just bad. First of all, how does Mal get Courtney's list? Second off, this episode is boring and doesn't do much, if anything, to advance the plot. I think Courtney made it too far and deserved to be sent home. I think her way of doing so was satisfying, but not enough for me to change my opinion on this terrible episode.
Total drama!
Coming in as the best episode of Pakatu Island, I think I'm gonna go with Scarlet Fever. It's a good episode and I like what we see. Scarlet being a villain just somewhat makes sense to me, but you'd think she'd be smarter than the fall for what she ended up falling for. The episode itself, though, was pretty good, and I like the plot twist. I like the environment of the island, and seeing it transform was honestly really cool. And I think that's where we see the characters at a really high mark, and unfortunately, it only goes down from here. The elimination was well deserved, and I gotta be honest, I really didn't like Max. He was just a mediocre at best character, so seeing him leave was very good in my opinion. Also, Scarlet was interesting to see here, but I think she deserved to leave as well.
Anyone with me?
Total drama!
Hurl and Go Seek was terrible. I mean, I think half the episodes in the season could have contended here, but dang, this one is bad. It's a gross out episode, so we know it's already terrible. I mean, on top of this, we see the sorriest moment ever. Dave breaking down into tears was just sad. Not literally sad, but everyone else is just watching in confusion. Even they knew he was sorry. The main issue that I have with this episode is that it's gross and boring. The only thing I like about this episode was seeing Dave's downfall. He didn't deserve Sky and they weren't needed. I just hated their relationship in general. This episode was trash, and honestly, compared to most of Pakatu Island, it doesn't stand out that much amongst the rest of the episodes, but it's still bad and I just hate it.
The word dude will never sound as sweet to my ears again. Hopefully this week I get to kick off a team I don't like. Stick around, it's time for the Redonkulous Race.
Man, Redonkulous Race was a great season, but I gotta be honest, choosing a best episode was pretty difficult, but I managed to narrow it down and eventually decided to go with How Deep Is Your Love. This episode shows off what makes Redonkulous Race my favorite season. There's drama, suspense, climax, sabotage, and it's all here in one episode. The challenge involves teams sailing to their next location and going down an underground cavern to find a red ball. Pretty simple, but I do like it. We see the sabotage when Kitty gets her ball stolen and her light broken. We then see the drama between MacArthur and Sanders. Meanwhile, we see suspense with Kitty trying to find a ball to continue forward. We see climax when MacArthur drops Sanders all the way down the cavern, resulting in Sanders breaking her arm. I like how the mood immediately changes and we see how upset MacArthur is. And may I add, the location here in Russia is pretty solid. This episode was pretty funny, it had a lot going, and it perfectly sums up why I like Ridonkulous Race so much. Interactions, sabotages, alliances, and action. So much to love, and this is my personal favorite episode of Ridonkulous Race.
The word dude will never sound as sweet to my ears again. Hopefully this week I get to kick off a team I don't like. Stick around, it's time for the Ridonkulous Race.
Coming in as the worst Ridonkulous Race episode, I decided to go with Brazilian Painforest. I mean, this episode is just gross. I mean, just look at that, man. But besides this, the episode is pretty boring. This episode has a good location, which I'd argue Ridonkulous Race maintained good locations through the season, but some of the challenges were just kinda whatever. This episode didn't make me laugh, and I was just disgusted by the aftermath of the ants. There isn't a lot going, and the other challenge is pretty mediocre at best. I mean, it's just designing an outfit, like, come on, man. For a strong season, it definitely had some flaws, but this, in my opinion, was the worst episode of the series.
Whoa, 4 fingers.
Okay, I know you guys probably think I made an editing mistake, but I promise I didn't. I want to end this video on a positive note, so let's just get into it. The worst reboot episode, I mean, we knew it was going to be Trust Your Butt. I really don't got much I want to say about this episode, but I'll say it because you guys seem to enjoy my rants. This episode sucks, let's be honest. It's gross and it doesn't add anything to the plot. Along with this, it's just such a boring episode. I mean, they have dinosaurs, which is like cool, but what's the point? Especially if Julia's just gonna bake on them anyway. But jokes aside, I wasn't a huge fan and neither was anyone else. There just wasn't a lot going on, and it's a gross episode. Honestly, I'd recommend skipping this episode because it's just that bad.
Whoa, 4 fingers.
Coming in as the best reboot episode, it was pretty close. I mean, this reboot was honestly well received by pretty much everyone, but I think I'm gonna go with a skull-based game. I love this episode because it's the best for a lot of characters, like Wayne and Raj, Emma, Scary Girl, and it's just a fun episode. I mean, the premise is that the characters must have an intense face-off on pirate ships, and it's pretty entertaining. I really like the way they set it up, the plot is really cool, and we do see some character development. I really think this episode explains why I like Wayne and Raj so much. They both handle their job well, and we see it reflect on everyone on their team. I think the elimination was good and well-deserved. The episode itself is just very good and super enjoyable. Definitely by far my favorite episode of the reboot, although there was a lot from the reboot that I did really like. Well, that'll wrap this one up. Thank you guys for supporting the channel. It means so much to me, honestly. We've been growing insanely quick. We're on the road to 300 subscribers, so we'll see if we can get there. But anyway, thank you guys so much for watching, and I do have one question before I sign out fully. What content would you guys like to see me cover? I want to expand out to grow my community, and I would just like to see what would you guys be interested in. So please leave that down below in the comments, but that'll just about end it. Thank you guys so much for watching, and take it easy. Peace.